There's a question nobody's allowed to ask anymore, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Why is it that equality only matters when it benefits certain people? When the building's on fire, nobody's checking gender quotas for who carries people out. When the power grid fails in winter, nobody's demanding equal representation in the repair crews working through the blizzard. When society needs its essential work done, the dangerous, dirty, thankless work, suddenly, equality doesn't matter anymore. Let me show you the selective equality that everyone sees, but nobody's supposed to mention. Let's start with essential versus non-essential labor. During the pandemic, we learned who really keeps society running. Power plant operators, sewage workers, truckers, construction crews, farmers, overwhelmingly men. These aren't glamorous jobs. They're brutal, dangerous, often deadly. But without them, civilization stops. Meanwhile, we're told that having more female CEOs is the real priority. The building's foundation is cracking, but we're worried about who gets the corner office. I had a conversation with someone recently who insisted men and women contribute equally to society. So, I asked a simple question. If all men stopped working tomorrow, how long before the lights go out? About 72 hours. If all women stopped working tomorrow, we'd have a childcare crisis and healthcare would struggle. Absolutely. But the lights would stay on, the water would keep flowing, the trucks would keep delivering. This isn't about value as humans. It's about recognizing who's actually keeping the machine running. The gendered risk and sacrifice statistics are staggering. 92% of workplace deaths are men, 97% of combat deaths, 80% of suicides, 75% of homeless people. But what dominates the conversation? The wage gap that disappears when you account for hours worked, career choices, and experience. We're focused on equal pay for office work while ignoring that men are literally dying to keep society functional. A client of mine works on oil rigs, months away from family, constant physical danger, several co-workers killed over the years. His ex-wife, who divorced him for never being around, now complains she doesn't get enough alimony. She wants equality in the bank account, but not equality in the risk. She wants the rewards of his sacrifice, without making any sacrifice herself. The unequal perception of contribution is everywhere. When women talk about their struggles, emotional labor, mental load, multitasking, it's treated as profound truth. When men mention that they work more hours, die younger, handle all home repairs, maintain vehicles, deal with emergencies, that's just what men are supposed to do. Your contribution only counts if you complain about it loud enough, apparently. Now, childcare and domestic responsibility. Yes, women do carry more of this load in many households. That's real, and it matters. But let's add context. Modern women have dishwashers, washing machines, robot vacuums, grocery delivery, prepared foods, disposable diapers. My grandmother raised 8 kids with none of that. She'd laugh at calling today's household management oppressive. The work is real, but let's not pretend it's the same as when women actually were restricted to domestic life. The historical access versus modern entitlement gap is massive. Yes, women faced real barriers. Couldn't vote, couldn't own property, couldn't work many jobs. That was wrong and needed to change. But today, women are 60% of college graduates, have preferential hiring in many fields, have entire government departments dedicated to their advancement. Yet the narrative is still that there are oppressed victims fighting against systematic barriers. At what point do we acknowledge that the barriers are gone? A female colleague recently complained about the glass ceiling at our company. I pointed out that our CEO is a woman. 3 of 5 VPs are women. HR is entirely female, and they have a women-only mentorship program that men can't join. What ceiling? The only ceiling is the one where someone else won't do the work for you. The financial decision-making disparity is hilarious. When you examine it, women make or influence 80% of household purchasing decisions. They control the majority of consumer spending. They initiate 70% of divorces, and typically get the house, kids, and income stream. But somehow, they're financially oppressed. You control the spending, but claim poverty. Make it make sense. The accountability for personal choices piece is what really gets ignored. Choose to major in gender studies instead of engineering. That's a choice. Choose to work part-time to have more personal time. Choice. Choose to leave the workforce for 5 years, then expect to return at the same level. Choice. But when these choices lead to different outcomes, suddenly it's discrimination. I counsel couples where the woman chose to be a stay-at-home mom, encouraged her husband to work longer hours for more money, enjoyed the lifestyle that provided, then in divorce claimed she was forced out of the workforce. No, you chose comfort over career. Own it. Men don't get to claim they were forced to work dangerous jobs, even though they often actually are, by economic necessity. The misalignment of societal credit is stunning. Every building you see, men built it. Every road you drive on, men paved it. The entire infrastructure of civilization, power, water, transportation, communication, built and maintained by men. But point this out and you're told you're minimizing women's contributions. What contributions exactly match building the entire physical world? The risk of overemphasizing gender barriers actually hurts everyone. When we pretend women are constantly held back, we ignore the men falling behind. Boys are failing in schools designed for female learning styles. Young men are dropping out of college at alarming rates. Male suicide is epidemic. But we can't address these issues because that would mean admitting men have problems too, and that breaks the narrative. Look at the impact of workforce participation on social systems. When women entered the workforce en masse, wages stagnated because labor supply doubled. Now, both parents have to work to maintain the same standard of living one income used to provide. Women gained the right to work, but lost the option not to. Congratulations, you played yourself. The practical versus emotional advocacy difference is stark. Men see a problem, they fix it. Bridge broken, build a new one. Enemy attacking, fight back. Woman in danger, protect her. It's action-oriented. But modern gender discussions are all emotional advocacy, awareness campaigns, number movements, demanding others change their behavior, lots of talking, minimal doing. A company I consulted for spent $2 million on a women in leadership program. Result, 3 promotions. Same company needed to upgrade safety equipment for their warehouse workers. All men budget $200,000 delayed for 2 years. The men literally risking their bodies daily matter less than theoretical gender parity in management. The gendered perspective on societal development shows the blindness. Yes, having women in various fields brings different perspectives, can improve workplace culture, adds valuable skills. Nobody's denying that. But acting like society was broken until women joined the workforce ignores that society was already functioning because men built and maintained it while women were doing other essential work like raising the next generation. The privilege versus hardship framing needs to be flipped. Modern Western women are the most privileged humans in history. More education opportunities than men, legal advantages in divorce and custody, shorter sentences for the same crimes, vast support networks, reproductive choice, safety nets everywhere. Yet, they're convinced they're oppressed because someone on Twitter was mean. Meanwhile, look at male privilege. Privileged to die in wars. Privileged to work dangerous jobs. Privileged to be assumed guilty. Privileged to have 0 reproductive rights. Privilege to be mocked for showing emotion, then blamed for not showing emotion. If this is privilege, you can have it. The equity versus selective equality is the core issue. Equality in STEM fields, absolutely. Equality in sanitation work, crickets. Equality in corporate boards, yes. Equality in workplace deaths, silence. Equality in college admissions demanded. Equality in prison sentences, never mentioned. It's not about equality, it's about advantage. I know a female firefighter who admitted she couldn't carry a grown man out of a burning building. The physical standards were lowered so she could qualify. Is that equality? If your house is burning and she shows up instead of someone who could actually save you, do you feel good about gender parity? Reality doesn't care about representation. The cultural storytelling and historical revision is Orwellian. We're now told that women were always equally capable but held back by patriarchy. Really? Was patriarchy why women couldn't work in coal mines? Was it sexism that kept them off battlefields? Or was it that upper body strength and bone density actually matter? In some contexts, the reframing of male sacrifice as privilege is insane. Men died by the millions in wars, worked themselves to death in factories, sacrificed their bodies in mines and construction, and were told this was their privilege and power. No, it was their obligation. They didn't choose to die in trenches any more than women chose to die in childbirth. Biology and society demanded different sacrifices. The responsibility and gratitude gap is enormous. When's the last time you heard anyone thank men collectively for building and maintaining civilization, for protecting society, for doing the dangerous work? Never. But we have entire months dedicated to celebrating women's contributions. The gender that does the dying gets less recognition than the gender that does the complaining. A thought experiment tomorrow. All male privileges become real. Men don't have to work dangerous jobs, don't have to be providers, don't have to protect anyone, can show fear without judgment, can opt out of hard labor. Society collapses in a week because what feminists call male privilege is actually male obligation that keeps everything running. The systemic inertia versus individual action problem is critical. People complain about systemic barriers while ignoring individual opportunities. Can't become an engineer because of sexism. Strange. My female engineering colleagues managed it. Can't succeed because of patriarchy. Weird how millions of women do anyway. At some point, systemic excuses become personal failures. The childcare infrastructure argument is revealing. We need more childcare support so women can work. Okay, but who's working in those daycares? Other women making minimum wage, so you can make more. You're not liberating women. You're just creating a servant class of poorer women to enable richer women's careers. Society's dependence on labor division is mathematical. Throughout history, roles were divided by capability and necessity. Men did dangerous work requiring strength. Women did essential work compatible with pregnancy and nursing. Both were necessary. Neither was privileged. It was survival optimization. But now we pretend this was oppression rather than adaptation. A female executive I know admitted privately that she's glad her husband handles all home repairs, car maintenance, yard work, and finances. I couldn't do it, she said. But publicly, she posts about equal distribution of household labor. The cognitive dissonance is remarkable. She wants credit for equality while living traditional benefits. The selective application of equality extends everywhere. Dating men still expected to pay, plan, pursue. Divorce. Women get default custody and financial support. Crime. Female criminals get sympathy and reduced sentences. War. Only men register for the draft. Where are the equality warriors on these issues? I asked a feminist why she wasn't campaigning for women to be 50% of garbage collectors. Her response, that's not the kind of equality we're fighting for. Exactly. You want equality of outcomes in comfortable positions, not equality of obligation in difficult ones. You want the corner office, not the coal mine. The modern dating market exposes this perfectly. Women want traditional men, providers, protectors, leaders, while offering non-traditional partnership. They want a 1950s husband while being a 2020s wife. They demand chivalry while preaching equality. Open the door for me, but don't you dare assume I need help. Pay for dinner, but don't think you're in charge. The biological reality that nobody wants to discuss is that men and women are different, not better or worse, different. Men have 40% more upper body strength on average. Different brain chemistry, different risk tolerance, different priorities. Pretending these differences don't exist doesn't make them go away. It just makes policy based on lies. A construction company was forced to hire more women for diversity. They put them in the office because they physically couldn't do the actual construction work. So now the men do all the physical labor while women do paperwork, but the company gets diversity points. Is this progress, or is this just elaborate theater? The emotional manipulation of the equality argument is masterful. Question any aspect of it, and you're labeled sexist. Point out male sacrifices, and you're told you hate women. Mention biological differences, and you're a bigot. It's a perfect system. Demand special treatment, while calling any opposition discrimination. The infrastructure dependency that everyone ignores is critical. Your iPhone, men mine the minerals. Your car, men built it. Your house, men constructed it. The road to your yoga class, men paved it. The electricity for your computer, where you blog about oppression, men maintain the power grid. But sure, tell me more about how society oppresses you. Modern conveniences that liberated women were mostly invented by men. Birth control pill, developed by men. Washing machine invented by a man. Infant formula allowing work while having babies. Male invention. Men literally invented women's liberation. But acknowledging this breaks the narrative. The raising boys crisis nobody talks about is devastating. Schools, drug boys for being boys. Masculine behavior is pathized. Male teachers are nearly extinct. Boys are told they're toxic just for existing. Then we wonder why young men are checking out, dropping out, giving up. We've created a generation of broken boys while celebrating girl power. A teacher friend told me she's required to prioritize girls in class discussions to balance historical inequity. So, boys today who had nothing to do with history are actively discriminated against for the crimes of being male. This isn't equality, it's revenge. And we wonder why boys are failing. The workplace safety double standard is criminal. Companies spend millions on making offices comfortable for women. Ergonomic everything, temperature controls, pumping rooms for mothers. Meanwhile, male-dominated industries have workers dying from preventable accidents because safety equipment is too expensive. But tell me more about office air conditioning being sexist. The selective historical memory is convenient. When talking about historical oppression, we remember women couldn't vote. We forget men were drafted to die in wars. We remember women couldn't own property. We forget men were expected to die protecting that property. Every female limitation had a corresponding male obligation, but only one side of that equation gets discussed. The modern privilege pyramid puts certain groups at the top while pretending they're at the bottom. A college-educated woman in America has more opportunities, legal protections, and social support than 99% of humans who've ever lived. But she's convinced she's oppressed because someone mansplained something to her. The responsibility avoidance is staggering. Choose bad partners. Men's fault for being bad. Choose useless degree systems' fault for not valuing it. Choose to prioritize lifestyle over career. Society's fault for not accommodating. There's always someone or something else to blame. Personal accountability is apparently patriarchal oppression. The emergency response reality check is sobering. When disaster strikes, hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, who shows up? Male firefighters, male rescue workers, male utility crews. They leave their families to save strangers. They risk their lives without hesitation. But during peacetime, we're told they're the problem, the oppressors, the toxic ones who need to change. I witnessed this during a recent natural disaster. Men working 20-hour shifts to restore power. Men wing through floodwaters to rescue people. Men clearing roads, rebuilding infrastructure, maintaining order. Meanwhile, social media was full of posts about how the disaster disproportionately affected women. The men doing the saving don't even get mentioned. The reproductive technology conversation exposes more hypocrisy. IVF, egg freezing, surrogacy, all celebrated as expanding women's choices, but male birth control barely researched. Male reproductive rights non-existent. A woman can use a man's sperm without his consent from a discarded condom and sue him for child support, and he has no recourse. That's the equality we live with. The invisible labor of protection never gets acknowledged. Every time a woman walks safely at night, it's because men are maintaining order. Every time she isn't conscripted for war, it's because men volunteered. Every time she's rescued from danger, it's men doing the rescuing. But this protection isn't seen as labor, it's seen as minimum expectation, while everything else is oppression. Here's what real equality would look like. Equal physical standards for physical jobs, equal sentencing for crimes, equal custody assumptions, equal financial obligations, equal draft registration, equal workplace death rates, equal suicide rates, equal homelessness. Want that equality? No. Then stop pretending you want equality at all. The gratitude deficit toward male sacrifice is shameful. Every comfort, every safety, every convenience of modern life exists because men risked everything to create and maintain it. Your freedom to complain about oppression exists because men died to protect it. The least you could do is acknowledge it. The future implications of this selective equality are terrifying. Men are increasingly opting out, marriage rates plummeting, birth rates below replacement, men avoiding mentoring women for fear of accusations. The very structures that built civilization are crumbling because we've made it dangerous for men to be men. Young men are getting the message loud and clear. Your sacrifice doesn't matter. Your contributions don't count. Your struggles aren't real. Your needs don't exist. Then we act shocked when they retreat into video games, porn, and isolation. We've made reality hostile to males, then wonder why they're escaping reality. The solution isn't to oppress women or go backward, it's to be honest about reality. Men and women are different. Both have value. Both make sacrifices. Both deserve recognition. But pretending women are oppressed while men are privileged in modern Western society isn't just wrong, it's destructive to everyone. The infrastructure of civilization depends on male labor. The continuation of humanity depends on female labor. Both are essential. Neither is superior, but only one is celebrated while the other is demonized. This isn't sustainable. Reality doesn't care about your ideology, and reality always wins. Here's what I tell young men. Don't apologize for being male. Your masculinity isn't toxic. It's necessary. Your strength isn't oppression. It's protection. Your sacrifice isn't privilege. It's love. The world needs you, even if it won't admit it. Build, protect, provide, and ignore anyone who says that's not valuable. And to the reasonable people out there who understand nuance, yes, women faced real historical restrictions. Yes, some barriers still exist. Yes, we should address real discrimination. But we can do that while also acknowledging male sacrifice, male struggles, and the selective nature of modern equality demands. The honest conversation would admit that different doesn't mean unequal, that both genders have advantages and disadvantages, that civilization was built through complementary roles, not oppression, that men and women need each other. But honest conversations don't generate outrage, and outrage is currency. Now, the cultural revolution needed isn't more feminism or return to patriarchy. It's recognition of reality. Biological differences exist. Social roles evolved for survival. Modern technology has changed the game. We need new models based on truth, not ideology. But that requires admitting current narratives are lies. Every man watching knows what I'm talking about. You've experienced the double standards. You've felt the discrimination disguised as equality. You've seen your sacrifices minimized while your advantages are exaggerated. You're not crazy. You're not sexist for noticing. You're just observing reality in a world that denies it. The path forward requires courage to speak truth. Yes, women should have equal opportunities. No, that doesn't mean equal outcomes. Yes, discrimination's wrong. No, different results aren't proof of discrimination. Yes, both genders have value. No, they don't have to be identical to be equal. The selective equality demanded today isn't about fairness. It's about advantage. It's about getting benefits without obligations, rights without responsibilities, power without accountability. It's about maintaining traditional privileges while claiming modern oppression. It's about having your cake and eating it, too. But men are waking up. They're realizing the game is rigged. They're seeing through the manipulation. They're understanding that no amount of sacrifice will ever be enough. They're learning that the only winning move is not to play, and that terrifies those benefiting from the current system. The civilization we enjoy exists because men did dangerous things women couldn't or wouldn't do. The safety we take for granted exists because men sacrifice their bodies and lives. The comfort we assume exists because men built it and maintain it. Acknowledging this isn't sexism, it's gratitude. The next time someone talks about equality, ask them if they mean real equality. Equal sacrifice, equal obligation, equal danger, equal accountability. Watch them squirm. Watch them qualify. Watch them explain why they only want certain kinds of equality. Then you'll understand what's really going on. Reality check. Society needs both men and women, but it needs them doing different things. We survived as a species through specialization, not duplication. Men doing dangerous necessary work and women doing essential reproductive work wasn't oppression. It was optimization. But only one side of that equation is valued today. The modern equality movement isn't about equality. It's about superiority disguised as victimhood. It's about getting maximum benefit with minimum cost. It's about rights without responsibilities. It's about power without accountability. And men are finally starting to see through it. I want to hear from the men out there. What double standards have you experienced? When have you seen equality demanded selectively? What sacrifices have you made that went unrecognized? Drop your stories in the comments. Let's document reality before it becomes illegal to notice it. The truth needs to be told, even if nobody wants to hear it.